Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Softube booth at NAMM 2021. We're really excited to present to you today a conversation between Weiss Engineering and Softube. And at this point, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Daniel Weiss and Joschka Weiss. Hi, guys.
Hi, Todd.
Thanks a lot for joining us. I have to ask you, just out of my own curiosity, the first question has to just go right to something, which is, Daniel, this past year you won a technical Grammy Award. In 1998, I believe it was, you won the TEC Award at NAMM. And this year you are once again nominated for an award with Softube for the Weiss EQ1. I mean, these are three monumental achievements. So first of all, congrats. That's unbelievable.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just mind-blowing, the things that you've accomplished. So my question to you is really from a creative side. When you're creating a product, are you trying to be innovative, or is it more that you're on a quest to just find excellence and just high fidelity, and from that the innovation occurs?
Well, we always try to do products which are not me too products, so to speak. That's our credo. So if you do an EQ, then we try to find features which are not out yet or which nobody knows about. So that's one thing, and the other thing is that we try to do our gear technically as good as possible.
Most people are familiar with the company Studer. You work for Studer. You have a background in analog electronics. You understand analog circuitry, but you took a path more directly down digital circuitry with your products. Could you maybe talk about that?
Yeah, right. Well, when I was at Studer, I didn't do analog or not much actually, because Studer started in '79 with the PCM lab, with the digital audio lab. Was the very beginning of digital audio at Studer. And I was at that lab. They opened that lab. So we started with digital audio right from the start there. Back in those times, the CD was coming in '84 when my company started. The CD was hitting the floor, the sales floors, and then there was a market niche for digital audio processing, for mastering, also for recording, of course, but mastering was the main topic back then. With the CD, they wanted to have digital processing.
Yeah, we're going to listen to some sound examples of the Weiss EQ-MP and just hear why it's so high fidelity and such a great product. Just for people that don't know, what is some of the benefit of working in the digital domain versus working in the analog domain when it comes to something such as EQing?
Yeah, well, in digital domain, you can do specific things which are not possible in analog. Particularly in an EQ, you can do a linear phase EQ, which has a different sound, a sonic signature compared to a minimum phase EQ.
There is a sonic difference between linear phase and minimum phase. When I think about the two sonically, I think about the smearing that can occur in a linear phase EQ with a transient due to the time alignment. Maybe, Joschka, you can help me understand better from a mix engineer's point of view. Why would we want to work with a linear phase versus a minimum phase EQ? Why is the Weiss EQ-MP going to be superior, or maybe just an amazing tool to have in our arsenal when we're mixing?
The MP of Weiss is like less messing around with the phase-wise. That's because we are using not the most common algorithms or the most used ones. I think that's the main difference. So it just feels more musical than others do.
One of the examples that I can hear the difference in the most is maybe taking something such as a kick drum. If I boost the fundamental of a kick drum and maybe cut right before it, we avoid, as I said, that kind of transient smearing that can occur. Is there another example that, or maybe a type of track that you would be working on where you think this type of EQ excels? I mean, for me, as I said, I find it really with heavy transient material, but are there other areas we see this EQ really just shining?
For me, it's shining overall when I mixing with that top-down approach, where it really gets obvious when you have those phase mirroring. It's all the parallel processing brings it up. So when I first coloring all the sources by parallel processing, and then introducing like more corrective EQ, it's gets really obvious what's happening with phase wise.
When you compare linear phase to minimum phase, I remember being a student and not understanding the concept, but when you finally hear the difference, it's the type of thing you can't unhear. It's once you recognize that sonic signature, it's something that instantly is recognizable and you understand how it changes your mix. So with the Weiss EQ1 and DS1, these are two units that I think of as just the white box units. When I grew up and saw these units in a mastering house or even in the occasional mixing studio, I didn't know what they were at first, but I knew they were in every top mastering engineering studio. What is the Gambit series? How would you kind of sum up what it is as a concept, and why is it so popular? Why is it in every top mastering engineer studio that I see?
I mean, there are so many different applications. You can use it widely, like for example, in the DS1, you have all the band split modes. There are just so many different ways one can use it. But still, what is special about it is the way it is doing it. I mean, the sound is just so transparent and didn't change at all in all that time.
Yeah, and I don't know which one of you would be best to answer this question, but we have taken the amazing processing of the Gambit series and we put it into the Console 1 channel strip, which is the Weiss Gambit series for Console 1, which gives mix engineers the opportunity to take that high fidelity processing that previously really that we saw in mastering studios is now it's now coming to the mix engineer. They could work with this amazing fidelity at home.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is kind of the counterpart to all the coloring algorithms Softube already had. So it was kind of missing too, but it's the best way to have the Weiss algorithms to get that clean EQing and processing overall covered. The console one itself is already, to me, a game changer as an engineer because it is so close to a hybrid mixing setup. It's just amazing workflow wise, and there isn't any product that offers that opportunity in that way.
We're going to start by taking our low gain and bringing it up. We'll sweep. And right in there, we start to bring the chest sound of that kick drum to life.
What is great about it too is that shape section, which is also unique. The upward compression is just really amazing at that early stage of processing.
It's funny, one of my favorite things I love to do with the Weiss Gambit series for Console 1 is use it on drums in the shape section, but take the ratio in the other direction that we typically think of as a gate. But what it ends up doing is opening up the room sounds in this kind of explosive way, making drums just feel larger than life, bringing up room ambience. And it's taken away the idea that I need to use a reverb on my drums. It just brings out the natural characteristics in this amazing way. Let's jump into some drum overheads and listen to how some below threshold shaping can really bring out the room ambience in our sound. Listen to the difference between the hard gate and the standard setting. So Softube offers the de-esser, compressor, limiter, the MM1 maximizer. These are all units based on the DS1 Mark III and the EQ1, especially now with the Weiss EQ-MP. I guess my question is, so we have the standalone units, the flagship units modeled, but we've made these other modules available. What's the benefit of having these smaller modules available rather than just the full flagship models?
Besides of being just stripped down plugins of the big boxes, it is also improving the workflow. They are also kind of specialized tools. Let's say the de-esser has an optimized GUI for the job it has to do. It has also 2 bands. It offers 2 bands, in contrary to the box itself. It is also capable of being used in a mixing during mixing, because it doesn't imply that much latency, so it is also usable in a mixing scheme.
Weiss is synonymous with basically top level mastering engineers and just the top of the top professionals in the industry. But if I'm a student or I'm a young engineer, can Weiss be used and appreciated by somebody like me if I'm just getting started out in mixing?
I mean, the MM1, for example, is absolutely great for that. With those 4 or 5 styles, you can just use them, pull up the amount, and it is immediately what you would expect from that styles too, and it's just absolutely transparent.
Yeah, the MM1 has been amazing for me to put it on my master bus for when a client needs a mix, but they want it at mastering levels. They want it loud. They want to take it home and compare it to what they're listening to in iTunes. So it's an instant way to get that kind of mastering polish very quickly. With the Weiss EQ MP, we not only deal with a different GUI from the EQ one, but we are now dealing with lower latency. And we also can run more instances because it's a lower CPU hit. So this becomes the perfect product to use on multiple tracks when mixing too, right?
Yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah. I mean, the bigger ones like the EQ1 plugin introduced quite a lot, a big amount of latency, and also was kind of a CPU hog. And so it's just perfect having lower CPU, more efficient, so you can use it in a mixing scheme. And also now the GUIs are resizable, which is absolutely great, having it running on all different kinds of screens.
Yeah, the resizable GUI is incredible because sometimes I'm using the Weiss EQ MP just to put in a low cut and filter out any rumble. And so I could use a smaller GUI that's maybe up in the top left of my screen.
There is just a feeling that this might be right for us, for you and me.
But other times, if I'm working with a piano with multiple resonant frequencies, I want to expand it as wide as possible to notch out every detail and really see what's going on. And the analyzer is incredible too.
Yeah. And also, I really like that dark mode. It's just really lower on the eyes. I really dig it.
So speaking of low cuts and high cuts, we've added different slopes that weren't on the original hardware. Is that correct?
Right. since the new MP version, it is also possible to make deeper filter. So it is more appropriate to use it in mixing.
With the new Softube Weiss EQ MP, the bandwidth and the precision is amazing. You could get this very wide bandwidth or Q value, or you can make it super like needle point fine tuning, just getting and narrowing out an individual harmonic. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, this very narrow bandwidth we basically did because of be able to cut out the hum frequencies, 50 or 60 hertz in your case, 60, 120, 180, etc. Because we added those frequencies as well, so exact 60 hertz and harmonics. So that the needle sharp cut filters allow you to get rid of those hum harmonics.
But from a mix engineer's point of view, we benefit too, because I actually was working on an example of a snare drum where the bottom and the top head, I believe it was, were out of tune, or there was something that was slightly out of tune, and there was almost a quarter tone detuning, and I was actually able to go in and remove the detuning so that it sounded like the drum was tuned up, which had allowed it to cut through the mix better. And it was just amazing. It didn't change the fundamental sound. It just keeps the sonic signature of your track without really changing the individual instrument. It's amazing. Softube has this history of just excellence, whether it's SSL, TubeTech, Summit Audio, Chandler Limited. And Weiss Engineering was at one point not a name that was associated with Softube. How did you feel to partner up with a company that's really known for capturing that analog sound quality and the distortion characteristics, while your product is almost the opposite? How did that partnership come about, and how did you feel about that?
Yeah, well, it feels great. I mean, I know the Softube people for years and years already, and we have talked about doing some cooperation years and years ago, and eventually it happened because of Softube approaching me again and asking for a cooperation. We held back for years and years to enter the plugin world, and we kept to our hardware-based digital audio units, which are old-fashioned basically, but still there are people buying them and using them, and because probably because of ergonomics. And
yeah, maybe we could talk about that, because one of the things I love about Console One is ergonomics, the idea of being able to close my eyes and listen and turn a knob without needing to use my mouse and look at a screen. And Console One gives that feel of taking what Weiss hardware only captured in the past and puts it in a workflow that now somebody could use as a home engineer, right?
That's true. I was also thinking we should do a kind of a remote control for the plugins, for the EQ1, DS1 plugins.
That's interesting to consider it like a remote control, because I frequently do that. One of the downsides of physical hardware that's mounted in a rack is you need to maybe leave your listening position to make an adjustment. But with something such as Console One bundled with Weiss processing, you could actually take the physical hardware to you, remain in your listening position, and fine tune those details. That really, that's why people turn to Weiss products, is knowing how, just how transparent and how clean and how precise they are. And you could just hear all that detail right from your listening position without needing to get up and move. Daniel and Joschka, I want to thank you very much for being here. Just for everybody who doesn't know, you guys are located in Switzerland, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So, so I one day, hopefully, I make a trip out to see Weiss Engineering in person and visit you guys. But in the meantime, I'm going to benefit both on the mix engineer side and the mastering engineer side, and I know a ton of people at NAMM will also benefit. So I want to thank you once again for taking the time, and goodbye to you guys.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.